Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya al-mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we are continuing with our training program on life coach. Inshallah, we are going to train as many as possible through our free life coach training program. You go to our website islamicspsychology.net to register, and you can have a certification program for you to serve yourself, your family, the ummah and the community. So we have summarized the 8 challenges facing the ummah and especially the youth in the 21st century, and we have the challenges of atheism, anxiety, depression, suicide, which we have completed. Now we are talking about pornography addiction in youth, because that is a very major problem that we never had in the centuries before that. That means this is the 21st century situation where young people are exposed to pornography at a very young age. Okay, so we have the other challenges we will discuss later. So pornography and addiction. Pornography is an addiction that stimulates compulsive sexual activities. Addictive use of pornographic material have negative consequences to one's physical, mental, social and spiritual well-being. So if you start at 7 or 8 years old and then you start having all these graphic, and then now they have this very animated 3D high definition kind of thing, then it is actually very destructive. Porn can include magazine, books, videos, movies, graphic novels and other media which depict the act of sexualized images and explicitly depict them. And they also have what we call unnatural porn, porn with animals, porn with all kind of unimaginable dirt which never exists in human history, porn with sex toys and so on. So porn with robots. So these are all getting crazy, and this is very addictive, especially for young brain who are not informed, so they become addicted to all this evil doing. Pornography is widespread and serious problem. It hurts your spirit and infects your mind with unclean thoughts. So this is where, if we are not careful, our young Muslims will be addicted, and this is already widespread. Even in countries like Malaysia, is very widespread because you can easily access to pornographic material with a click of a button, and that is something that is really going to shake the whole civilization in the 21st century. Addiction. What is addiction? In general, it refers to the state in which an individual experiences decreased control with regards to their desire of a certain stimuli and or increased feeling of routine desire for that stimuli. So for example, if you are a drug addict, you have always need a drug. So for pornographic addict, they will spend hours and hours every day scanning through pornographic material. So, and they will have this stimulus through the your brain, through the neurotransmitter dopamine. Studies have shown that porn addiction is a genuine behavioral addiction, as evidenced by the development of tolerance, decreased control over consumption despite negative consequences and or feelings, and changes of brain chemistry after prolonged overexposure. Not only that, you have a change in brain chemistry, your whole brain change, all right, and your brain shrinks actually. So then you cannot even later on have normal sex, in the sense that once you go through the graphic sexual act within phono, because they use a lot of creative media, it can never be replicated as a normal sex for normal people. So that you have a lot of other social problems for couple and so on. So we'll see 2 videos, all right, which will depict and explain to you how severe this problem is, and we Muslims, the Ummah, must now face these challenges so that our young people can be saved from this satanic evil that is spreading like virus throughout the world. And if there's no stop to this nonsense, we will face a very severe societal breakdown within this 21st century society. May Allah protect us from this evil, inshallah.
Now, parents, we know you hear plenty of warnings from us, but tonight this warning is different, and it should scare us as parents.
So you may think internet porn is for grown men, but it is a problem in boys, some as young as 8 years old. As Molly Hendrickson reports tonight, it has the power to damage relationships forever.
This thing doesn't go away. It's like cancer in the brain. but it's cancer in the thoughts.
It's the fastest growing addiction in our country.
It progresses. You need darker things, harder things, more violent things often.
And the most hidden.
This is an addiction that thrives in the darkness.
Which is why this recovering porn addict wants his identity concealed.
It destroys the mind. It destroys the ability to function. You can't look at women in the same way.
Pornography is often compared to crack cocaine. Nobody knows that better than Chris Simon.
That's really why I have this treatment center, is to help people who have my similar experience.
He started Restoration's Therapy Center in Denver after his own battle with pornography addiction. He says most parents don't realize the biggest users are kids between 12 and 17, with their first encounter typically happening around 8.
The pornography industry is really out to get kids hooked on it at an early age because they know that's when they're most pliable, they're most influenced by the exposure because of their brain development.
And that's where it all starts, the brain. Watching internet porn floods your brain with that feel-good drug, dopamine, and you can keep it high with the click of a mouse.
All of my self-hatred, which I had a lot of as a teenager, all of that was muted, was gone. As soon as I looked at pornography, it was like all just washed away.
For this man, that false sense of freedom ultimately chained him to his addiction. You see, over time, your brain forms new neural pathways. Dopamine overloads your receptors, dulling them out, meaning you need harder stuff and more of it.
And you need more intense, you need darker, in my case, and probably a lot of people.
And the earlier a child starts watching, the worse the consequences. Multiple studies show porn users struggle to keep relationships, are unhappy with their partners, and no longer desire them, preferring the virtual world instead. And experts like Simon are seeing a new phenomenon, porn-induced erectile dysfunction. And it's skyrocketed for men in their 20s.
And so medications for erectile dysfunction don't actually work that well because it's not about a physical response. The body works fine. It's about an emotional response. They have gotten used to seeing a level of attraction in videos and in images that don't exist in reality. Reality just can't compare.
This recovering addict has now been clean for 7 months. While the urges to watch porn are still there, he's learning new, healthier ways to cope with his depression through the support of others just like him.
I stepped into that 12-step group and I stopped falling. It was like that. No one had said anything yet, but it saved my life.
And this isn't just a problem that affects men. Simon says women are seeking treatment for porn addiction at record numbers as well.
So, what's a parent to do then?
Well, the biggest thing Simon says is start talking to your kids early about sex and intimacy, age-appropriate talk, of course, but Simon recommends you start as young as age 6. Also start talking to your kids about the dangers of watching online pornography and look into putting parental control software on their devices.
Age 6, incredible. What about treatment? Is that successful? Does it work?
It does work. They've seen a lot of success with it, but you have to work the program. Simon says first quit watching porn and let your brain reboot. This can take anywhere from 2 months to 3 years depending on the severity of the addiction. And we've also put resources on places you can find support groups and help on thedenverchannel.com.
That's stunning.
It is. Thanks, Mom.
When I was first approached by a young boy confessing his porn addiction to me, I was certain that he's either insane or joking. Never did I think for a moment that porn, sexual relationships, and masturbation would turn to some kind of addiction, a compulsive behavior that could easily ruin your entire life. Later on, after delving into my research in this area, I realized the intensity of the problem and why so many addicts have thought of even ending up their lives because they couldn't bear the pressure the pornography causes. And perhaps you are one of those who were hooked on porn for years and looking for a solution. But in order for you, and even for those who are not addicted, get the best understanding of the subject, then we should all comprehend how addiction to pornography works. Because the more you know, as I always say, the more you know, the more you grow. the more you get acquainted of what's happening, the most likely your resistance will increase, and you'll be able in the long run to beat up this compulsive habit. First of all, this has nothing to do with being religious or not. Anyone could be hooked on porn due to so many circumstances. Maybe you were harassed sexually when you were young, or came across some images that made you so curious, and as a result you started to watch again and again. Or perhaps you have seen your role models watching porn, and so you started imitating them. Maybe your spouse has less interest in sexual intimacy, and as a result you found pornography to be an alternative, and so on. So whether you are a religious person or not, Muslim or otherwise, addiction does not know faith. Addiction to pornography is an intensive tool that could easily make you a slave to your own desire. Pornography, if it is not fought against, could make you lose control over your own action. Many people argue about the definition of pornography and what is it really. Well, here's how I see it. Pornography are these images that teach you how to use strangers' images, films that you watch, other people's filthy practices and actions for your own temporary sexual pleasures. Without partners, without emotions, without love, without connection with any real person. It does rely entirely on fantasy and illusion. So instead of engaging sexually with your partner, with your spouse, pornography loves isolation and loves selfish pleasure. So the question now is, how did it become addictive? Just like any other addictive substance, pornography followed the same pattern. First is the exposure to these materials, then your brain will immediately register this activity. Hormones like dopamine will be fired up to remind you of this activity. You will be trying to resist because you know it is wrong. You know it's wrong. Then justification will be presented by your unconscious mind, something like, at least it is better than adultery, it is better than zina. Then you go ahead anyways, unwillingly, and start browsing porn. And of course, in a split of a second, then you experience this temporary and instant pleasure. And then comes a dark period of shame and guilt, which is much longer, by the way, much longer than the pleasurable one. What have I done? You'll start asking yourself, am I a hypocrite? How I wish I could have never done such, and so on and so forth. Then you start promising yourself never to access porn again. But after a few days, weeks, or even months, you relapse and go around the same cycle again and again for years. Now you should ask yourself, is that really something I wanted to repeat for the rest of my life? Is this how I wanted to end up my life? Isn't it time to say no to my desires and develop new, healthy, and uplifting habits to replace the bad ones? The good news is that our brain is capable of rewiring itself and adapting new habits, so the choice will always be yours. But without starting out your journey of recovery, nothing is ever going to change.
Download our mobile applications or register on our official website to get access to exclusive content. Links given in description of